This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Brewers Outlet, Sunbury Motor Company, and Purdy Insurance. Now, from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And a half hour brought to you by our good friends at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15, Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory, great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. Terrific service department that backs it up every step of the way, whether it's quick lane, inspections, routine, difficult. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Always great to talk from sporting news and also Fox Big Ten Network. Mike DeCourcy. Mike, welcome back. It's so great to hear you.
Oh, it's always a pleasure, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing well. I do want to ask at least a basketball question, then I'll get right to football. Big Ten made the decision to go from 15 schools playing in the Big Ten tournament 1 year to now having all 18 put in. What was your thought on that move by the Big Ten to go back to everybody being in?
Yeah, I think it's the right move. It makes sense to have everyone participate in the league. If it's feasible. And I think it was hard to do the first year, just the logistics of it, to try to put everything in place, but now they've had some time to adjust. And I think that if you're going to have 18 members in the league, it's better to have 18 members in your tournament. And it doesn't really add a whole lot. It's just that first year you were already going bigger, so it makes sense it made sense and was understandable why they didn't go immediately to this format. But this is the right format. Every team in every league should be involved in all of the conference tournaments if you're going to have them.
Because the part I think people forget is that in order to do this, you need the building one extra night. The Pacers had a home game on that Tuesday night last year. So, I mean, I want to at least give, so people understand some perspective on that. I'm sure they were able to work it out with the NBA with the Bulls having the United Center open for that extra night this year. So, okay. So now Penn State, Oregon. You wrote an article about the perception of where Penn State is with James Franklin, about the ability to win big games. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we do in the media now is we focus too often on defining the negative. You haven't done this. Yeah, but I did that. Well, it doesn't matter. You haven't done this. For instance, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I live in Pittsburgh. I followed the Steelers for my entire lifetime. Have not had a losing season since 2003. They've never had one under Mike Tomlin. But they also haven't won a playoff game in the last, I believe it's now the last 8 years. Since 2016, the last time they did it. Yeah. And so there's a lot of criticism around town about that. But it's not easy to build a team that is playoff winnable in a league where Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are the quarterbacks. It's hard to advance, and so it's the same kind of with James. They have done some amazing things. First of all, there was the fact that they restored Penn State to a place of prominence. I know Bill O'Brien did some really terrific work in those 2 seasons he worked to make sure that they didn't fall entirely off the face of the planet. And I give him lots of credit for that. And a big part of the credit for what ultimately James was able to accomplish. But they went from that peril that the program was in to the Big Ten championship in Bill's 2 years and then James's third. So that was an amazing achievement, really. And they were really close to taking it a step beyond that. But the College Football Playoff Committee didn't agree with putting them in, and the playoff format at the time wasn't great and all that. And then the next year they had that phenomenal game against Ohio State where they just, they lost 39-38 in what was maybe the best college football game of this century. And so they've been close, but they've been really good. They just haven't been elite. And as I pointed out in the article, one of the things that was really fascinating to me was that he himself, Tyler Donahue, pointed this out, that Franklin himself had said, we went from average to good and then good to great, and the next step, Tyler from 24/7 Sports pointed out that he said we need to go from being great to being elite, and it's now 7-8 years after that, and they still haven't made that step. And so I understand that it's the frustration or the impatience that you want to make that step, but it's a tough step to make. They've had some obstacles along the way, but now they're in the best position that they've been to take that step since they had Saquon in 2016 and 2017.
Right. No, in fact, that last step is the hardest step. Because you're trying to break into exclusive company at that point. The addition of Jim Knowles to the staff. There's only 3 games. I know that, and the first team defense has only given up a field goal so far. But just that move, and what do you think it means for the perception of Penn State that they were able to bring in somebody like that?
Well, it meant that they were really serious about getting better, because it's no secret he's making an extraordinary salary. So it's clear that they wanted to make it known that they're serious about taking that step to being elite. And then Knowles has to show that he can contribute to that, and certainly his track record indicates that he will. But you still have to do the X's and O's on that particular Saturday, just as James has to make the right calls when it's time to go for 2 or it's not time to go for 2, and maybe not run the ball on 4th and 5 and all that. Those things all have to happen on Saturday, just as the players have to make the right plays and execute them properly and all that. But Knowles coming in was a serious statement about Penn State saying, okay, we've been bounced around a little bit in the coordinator game, and not for anything they've done badly. I mean, for things they've done well. I mean, Ricky Ronnie moving up to being a head coach and all of that sort of stuff. Moorhead way back in the day. Those things were somewhat out of their control. They were doing good things, and so they lost guys who could have contributed to them making that step from great to elite. But now they've taken a step by bringing in Knowles of saying, okay, we're going to take the upper hand in that part of this now.
You wrote one beforehand about Illinois, Indiana. A rivalry. Now, look, and Todd Blackledge did the game, and I talked to Todd about it yesterday. That didn't even remotely turn out the way I thought it could.
Oh, no.
Right? I mean, there aren't many times where you sit back and say, when's the last time you heard this sentence? In a Big Ten game, Indiana scored 56 unanswered points. Okay. When's the last time you heard that? But
probably once upon a time when Knight was coaching the 76 Hoosiers to the 32-0 season. Probably at some point that year they scored 56 unanswered points.
They might have. But it was a down the line rivalry game in a bigger conference like this. How important can those down the line bigger rivalry games be for the perception of the conference and the depth of it?
I think very important. I think the fact that Indiana and Illinois, even though they didn't have a great game, they played a game that looked like it was going to be significant, and from the ranking standpoint was. I mean, it was 9 versus 19 in the AP poll on Saturday night. And that's good for the league. It maybe would have been better for the league as a whole if they had played a really competitive game. But it was great for Indiana that they were able to be so dominant. And obviously that did 2 things. One, it made Penn State's schedule maybe a little bit more difficult than they thought it was on Saturday afternoon at brunch. They probably thought it was going to be a little bit easier schedule than it is now. But it also means that if the Lions take care of one of the two games, one of the two top 10 games over the next month and a half, this one Saturday and the one at Ohio State, they take care of one of those two, and then they take care of Indiana at home, then they're looking at maybe having as good a resume as any non-unbeaten team. And I'm not saying they can't take care of both of those games. I'm just saying, that's a pretty reasonable expectation for these guys.
I have to ask you about Clemson. They're 1-3, and Syracuse beat them. So now, look, when they lost to LSU, Mike, I'm like, that's fine. I mean, you can lose a game like that. You still have the ACC schedule. Well, now they've lost to Georgia Tech and they've lost to Syracuse, and they had to rally in the fourth quarter in a non-conference game to beat Troy. Where does Dabo Swinney has his standards as to how he wants to coach in the modern game?
Yes.
Where does I admire he has standards, but where is he being hurt by not adapting?
Oh, I think it's obvious that he's being punished for not adapting. Mike Gundy just lost his job at Oklahoma State this week for not adapting wholly enough. And I think this can be, in many ways, the best thing for Clemson. And I don't mean that because it means, okay, get rid of Dabo. I mean, it means Dabo's got to wake up and stop pretending that it's 2015. It's not.
Yeah,
and
right.
If he continues to pretend that, either he gets a big buyout and Clemson moves on, or Clemson lives through a lot of these type of seasons. Maybe not this bad, but never again as good as they were 8 or 10 years ago. But if he adapts, like, he's a terrific football coach.
Yes.
And all he has to do is figure out his place in this game. And lots of terrific long-term basketball coaches have figured it out and found their way. Lots of terrific coaches who maybe haven't been in football quite as long, like a Ryan Day. It took them 5 minutes. Okay, we got to do that. We're doing that. I mean, it didn't take any time at all. And they continued what they were able to achieve and accelerated it. So Dabo can do what he's doing now, and like I said, either lose a bunch of games or get a big buyout, or he can say, okay, I get it now. I've tried. My way's not going to work. I can still hang on to my core principles, but I can't pretend that the transfer portal's not a revolving door. I got to get in there and make sure that I get the guys that I can get and that can make us better.
I do have to ask you one soccer question before I get you out of here.
Okay.
The United States men's national team, World Cup is next year. What did they need to clean up as a program so that they're in the best position possible to at least make some noise in the thing?
I think the first thing that needs to happen is that after a lot of experimentation, it's time for Mauricio Pochettino to say, okay, here's what you have to be to play for me. Not all this like surreptitious, well, we're not calling you in. And I think he sent all the messages that need to be sent except the direct one. Here's what you need to do. Weston McKennie, for instance, a midfielder who has been in and out of his favor. Here's what you need to do to play for me. And the same with every other player who's been somewhat questionable about whether they fit into not his system, but his program. That's the first thing. And Gio Reyna would be another, and there's several more. That would be the first thing. And then the second thing is, how does he want to play? That's the thing that is most puzzling to me at this point, is that we are now more than a year, just short of a year into his tenure. Right. Yep. And we don't really know how he wants to play these guys, how he wants to align himself. Does he want to be flexible? Does he want to be rigid with the system, but maybe a little bit flexible within the system? I don't think those guys have any idea right now what he thinks is the best way to play there. in the international break in early September, I went to the game in Columbus against Japan. Yeah. They played with a three center backs, which is very rare in U.S. soccer. We've very rarely played that. But it does have a logic to it based on who our center backs are now, particularly Tim Ream, who's 38 years old. Will be the oldest U.S. World Cup, as long as he stays healthy between now and then, he will be the oldest U.S. World Cup ever player by, I think, 2 full years. It might be helpful to have an extra center back out there. But if that's the way he's going to play, he's got to get to work doing it. And if he wants to stick with something like a 4-3-3 or a 4-3-2-1 or whatever, then he's got to say, okay, we're going to do this. Those guys don't know now. And if that doesn't happen soon, I think they're going to run out of time.
Yeah, because what Japan is what, 17 in the world right now, somewhere around there?
They were 17th in the world when they came in, yes.
Yeah. This is my issue. If you're around something for a year, at this point, you should know what your players can handle and which ones, maybe one or two, there may be some concepts a couple of guys can't handle, which means you can't use them. At this point, you should know that. That's how I look at it.
You're absolutely right, Steve. And I think that he was trying to just get a look at a lot of different guys over the course of the last several months. And what's bothersome to me is that he allowed Christian Pulisic to take a lot of criticism and heat from analysts generally, and particularly from some of the high-profile former players who've become analysts. Pochettino allowed him to take a lot of heat at a time when he was interested in looking at a lot of different players anyway. Pochettino, you put him on the field in the World Cup, he won't care. He really does care about this team.
Yes, he does.
I don't know him great, but I've dealt with him a lot. And he's always been very forthcoming about how much it means to him. And, hey, if you remember the goal he scored in 2022 that got the U.S. into the round of 16, you know, Steve, he put everything that matters to a guy on the line to score that goal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You can tell there's a passion to it. And you're not going to be great unless you have a passion for it. Pulisic is passionate about what the U.S. can do. So I never doubt that for a second. Mike, always a pleasure. Glad we could go around 3 different sports here in about 15, 20 minutes.
It was a lot of fun, Steve, and it's always a treat to talk to you.
Same here, my friend. Thanks. The great Mike DeCourcy. I mean, he is one of the absolute best in the business. BTN, Fox Sports, Sporting News. We'll wrap it up in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is, because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Gear up for the fall season in a Subaru from W&L.
Take on the Friday night lights in a fuel-efficient 2025 Subaru Crosstrek with as low as 0% financing for 72 months.
Or get to your favorite camping destination in a reliable all-wheel drive Subaru Outback from W&L. Enjoy your time away as you cozy up with the family around a crackling campfire and enjoy financing as low as 0% for 72 months.
Need more adrenaline?